This sermon is built around the relatively rare intersection of Easter Sunday today and Earth Day, only 2 days from now. Earth Day is always April 22nd, commemorating the anniversary of the first celebration 55 years ago in 1970. Easter, in contrast, is what's known as a movable feast day. It can be as early as March 22nd or as late as April 25th. A somewhat arcane formula is used to calculate the date. Easter is the first Sunday that comes after the first full moon that comes after the spring equinox. Now that sounds like some pagan math to me. And I actually mean that as a compliment. We could probably use more pagan math in this world to connect us more fully to in tune with Earth's rhythms. And after all, the word Easter is derived from the name Estra, which is a goddess in the spring, goddess of spring in Germanic paganism. At this intersection of Easter and Earth Day, I want to invite us to reflect on where are we archetypally on the clock of the world, so to speak. I know it's supposed to be Easter Sunday, this time of resurrection and rebirth. But in terms of the future that we, our children, our grandchildren, all sentient beings and this beautiful planet deserve, there are way too many ways that our reality at the moment, at least for me, feels stuck somewhere between the crucifixion of Holy Friday and the tomb of Holy Saturday. President Trump's 90 days in office so far, we haven't yet reached the 100-day mark, have been nothing less than a shock and awe campaign against climate justice. His administration has taken swift and dramatic steps to dismantle environmental protections. I'll limit myself to just briefly naming three among the many devastating anti-environmental actions. One of the most alarming actions has been the systematic elimination of environmental justice infrastructure across federal agencies. This administration has specifically targeted programs that were designed to protect the communities that have historically borne the worst effects of pollution and that are on the forefront of those who are being and will be most impacted by climate change. Another catastrophic action has been the rapid gutting of environmental agencies through mass firings and budget cuts. Thousands of people have been fired from the Environmental Protection Agency and the Departments of Energy and the Interior, and billions of dollars of federal dollars for clean energy advancement have been held back, sometimes flouting court orders to reinstate those funds. A third devastating action has been the unprecedented flurry of regulatory rollbacks targeting air quality, climate action, and pollution controls. The Union of Concerned Scientists warned that these rollbacks will, quote, leave our nation sicker and our air, water, and soil dangerously contaminated. Together, the actions form what climate justice activists have called an unprecedented assault on our environment and our health. Douglas Brinkley, a widely respected presidential historian, a humanities professor at Rice University, has said that in his professional opinion, it is not an exaggeration to describe President Trump as the single worst president for the environment in United States history. I'm reminded of a book by Gus Speth, the co-founder of the Natural Resources Defense Council, widely regarded as one of the most effective and influential environmental groups in the U.S., and former dean of the Yale University School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. This book, published a few years ago by MIT Press, is titled "They Knew: The U.S. Federal Government's 55-Year Role in the Causing of Climate Change." Speth describes our situation as Earthlings this way. He says, "I used to think that the top global environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science will address these problems." He says, I now see that I was wrong. The top environmental problems are none of those. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with these, we need a spiritual and a cultural transformation. That quote brings to mind a retreat that my two main meditation teachers, Vince and Emily Horn, are co-leading a few weeks from now in early May. I'd love to be on that retreat, but that's not going to happen. But it's at the I want to tell you a little bit about it since I'm unable to go. It's going to be at the Rocky Mountain Echo Dharma Retreat Center near Boulder, Colorado. Certainly a place that if you're thinking about doing a retreat, that would be a good place to do one. The retreat's theme will be Apocaloptimistic Dharma. And I'll tell you about that word. I know it's a mouthful. Apocaloptimism, or being an apocalyptimist, is a combination of the word apocalypse and optimism. Apocalypse comes from an ancient Greek word that literally means uncovering or revealing or revelation. So an apocalyptimist is someone who, even in apocalyptically bad situation, looks for the way forward that sometimes can only be uncovered or revealed when the situation gets dire enough. Like, how much pain what is our bottom? How much pain do we have to experience before we're ready to admit that first step? We have a problem. Now, don't get me wrong, it's strongly preferable if a critical mass of people wake up before we reach a low, low, low bottom, the level of apocalypse. But apocalyptimism reminds us that even in the face of extreme challenges, we humans have a deep capacity for resilience. Specifically on the retreat's theme of apocalyptimistic Dharma, Ram Dass said it this way: if I am enlightened, I will show up with an open heart and willing hands. And if there is an apocalypse, I will show up with open heart and willing hands. No matter the circumstance, our challenge is to respond as skillfully, as wisely, as compassionately as is available to us in each present moment. To say what that might mean more specifically, let me share with you a book that I recently finished that I unexpectedly found surprisingly relevant at this intersection of Easter and Earth Day. Are any of you reading Abundance or read about it, or maybe a podcast interview? Okay, I see some hands. Many months ago, I pre-ordered this book by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. I'm a longtime fan of Ezra Klein. I think his previous book, Polarized, anybody read that? That's a really, really smart and insightful book. So I pre-ordered this because whatever Klein's going to write, I'll give it a chance. So it just happened to be, because it showed up, I just happened to be reading it alongside the books that I thought I was going to use to write this Easter sermon. But after reading just a few pages of Abundance, I found myself thinking, there is an Easter sermon in this book. If we were to realize the abundance vision that they describe, it would be a resurrection on the other side of our current political crucifixions. It's fairly short and accessible, so if this sermon leaves you curious to learn more, I encourage you to read it or read about it or look for podcast interviews or listen to it. Conveniently, it's also the next selection of our UUCF Anti-Racism Book Club, so on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. in May, they'll be reading it. Keep an eye on our e-newsletter if you're interested in joining that study of this book. For now, consider this vision of the future and what an Easter morning could look like in the spring of a new Green Deal. That what we could co-create together if we, the people, can overcome selfishness, greed, and apathy that is currently dominating our body politic. Consider what could be a common experience of humans on this planet 25 years from now in the year 2050. You open your eyes at dawn and turn in cool bed sheets. A few feet above your head, affixed to the top of this roof, as we may be affixing to our roof, more coming about that, a layer of solar panels blinks in the morning sun. Their power mixes with electricity pulled from several clean energy sources, towering wind turbines to the east, small nuclear power plants to the north, deep geothermal wells to the south. 40 years ago, now a few of you may already have, solar panels, but most people these days cool their bedrooms with joules dredged out of coal mines and oil pits. They mine rocks and burn them, coating their lungs and byproducts. They encase their world, your world, in a chemical heat trap. That seems barbaric today from the view of the year 2050. You live in a cocoon of energy so clean it barely leaves a carbon trace, and so cheap you can scarcely find it on your monthly bill. The vision continues in many more ways that our world could be transformed for the better, for all of us, for all sentient beings, and for this planet. To make that better world possible will require sharing the world's wealth more equitably and not allowing it to be hoarded by a greedy few. In particular, if we continue with AI, it will require sharing the profits of AI equitably. But that is another sermon that I do not have time for right now. I preached it before. I will preach it again next year. But for this morning, I want to invite us to spend a few minutes considering another crucial change that will be required, that the better world we dream about will require of us building large-scale clean energy infrastructure. And one of the most crucial parts of the book is the way it wrestles with what has been called the green dilemma. Over the years, the environmental movement has gotten really good at saying no. Don't do that. Don't build there. To stop pollution, to stop species from becoming extinct, to stop the destruction of ecosystems, and so much more. And don't get me wrong, all of that has been and remains desperately needed. But if we want to get serious about a new Green Deal, which we also desperately need, we will need to act quickly on multiple national scale infrastructure initiatives of magnitudes never before passed through existing environmental law standards and procedures. And that's the dilemma. Current environmental laws were often designed with the best of intentions to slow things down, to stop or even reverse plans for building or growth in order to protect the environment. Ironically, those same well-intentioned processes could be the single greatest obstacle to building new green infrastructure at the level, scale, and speed that is needed to respond to the threat of climate change, which is also about saving the environment. To do a new Green Deal well, we will also need wise and skillful people in charge, and right now we have the opposite. We have the speed, but DOGE, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, is just moving fast and breaking things with maximum cruelty and a complete lack of care for the earth, with only one singular goal: to create more profit for the already rich. What we need are wise and courageous leaders who can guide us in moving fast and building a sustainable and abundant way forward for us all. For more details on what is holding us back, on how we might move forward together, I encourage you to read this book as one important consideration for doing that. And if you feel called to what can you do, what can we do to advocate for a better future, I encourage you to consider joining the Climate Justice Action Team that is part of our larger, under the umbrella of our Democracy Action Team, to join the climate justice, federal issues, voter rights, immigration justice, or our LGBTQ plus action groups. Just email that UUCF Democracy Action Team at gmail.com, either for more information or to sign up for one or more of these groups. For now, since it is still National Poetry Month, let me move toward my conclusion by inviting you to hear a poem. It's titled February 2nd. It was written on February 2nd, 2025, at the end of the second week of the current presidential term by Margot Stebbing. This poem feels deeply resonant to me here at the intersection of Easter and Earth Day. Notice how it's being outside in nature that creates the condition that catalyzes a shift within her from the hopelessness and oppression that feels archetypally like Holy Friday into an apocalyptimistic perspective in which the hope of something like Easter begins to seem possible again. Stebbing writes, "During the coup, the Canadian geese landed honking on the pond, and they stared at me in silence, asking, what was I willing to do? And I scoffed, bitter. I have spent my adult life warning people. A coup is coming, a crisis, an ending. We have to be good to each other. We have to protect the earth. We cannot give the pillagers and the thieves of this planet of seas and caves and living souls and flesh so fragile, But everyone was too polite and always felt exempt from duty or urgency or something. And my throat is sore from yelling, and my fingers hurt from trying to say it better. And no one is left to rage with. Now I might as well rest. It's over and done. The rich and the hateful have won. But the geese, they didn't move. Vigil, ritual, action. They circled my heart. Was this a cosmic attraction? They stayed until I gasped at the reality right now of my aliveness. I'm still here. And I felt a crashing, a grief and longing into one brief tsunami that made me realize I do not consent to species suicide. And I have been who I am, too loud and too bright to hide. These geese said to me, let what you feel become clear in your head. They told me, and I knew, we are not dead. Our work is not through. We are not dead. Our work is not through. That's the sort of resurrection I could actually begin to believe in this Easter Sunday. That's Apocaloptimism. If enlightened, I will show up with open heart and willing hands. And if apocalypse, I will show up with open heart and willing hands. As we seek to discern how do we feel led to act together to build the better future we all deserve. Let's rise in body or spirit. Let's sing together in your teal hymnals, number 1064, Blue Boat Home.